We love South.
Oh, hello. Didn't see you there. Hi, Mr. Meyer here with a little quick video to explain our read plan a little bit more in depth. Just because I know we sent out our read plan letters. Looks something kind of like this. Mine's got all notes all over it and stuff. You should have received that in the mail, or you'll be receiving it shortly, one of the two. But there's a couple of things I wanted to go over just to make sure that you kind of understand what our processes are here at South to deal with the Nebraska Read Plan, and then also what that means for your students. So on the letter, it does a pretty decent job of explaining things on there, but I just wanted to let you know the Nebraska Reading Improvement Act, which was passed last year, this is what we're following, and this is why this letter is going out to you. It hasn't been done in years prior to that. We've done other things instead, but we've never really done a mass letter group, I guess, out to all parents explaining kind of some of our processes. So to go into a little bit more detail on that, the general letter that you'll get, that goes out to every single student, whether or not you're going to be on a read plan or not. Okay, and it's going to put in basically there are three categories that we kind of rank our students. Students who are at or above expected or proficiency levels, some that are at, that show possible, some that are at some risk, I guess, and then others that are below expected or proficiency levels. Now, if your student shows up as low or below the expected proficiency levels, then we will create what is called a read plan, and we'll be sending that home very soon. So you'll be getting that very shortly. This has nothing to do with the letter that we have that has been sent home to all parents. Okay, there's no details in that other than just the general expectations of what we do with this reading bill. If your student is at some risk of being below or the expected levels, what we do with those students is kind of similar to what we do with our students that are on read plans. So I'd like to go into those details a little bit more. Okay, so first things first, we use a screener to identify students who are at or below level, and our screener that we use is our MAPS growth test. Okay, this is different than last year. Last year we used a DIBELS screener. Things have changed at the state level as far as what we can use as a screener and what scores we have to use. So we as a district decided to move to our MAPS testing. So the MAPS testing happens from kindergarten and it goes all the way up through grades 8 and I think even higher than that as well. So we're very familiar with these tests. We know what these numbers mean. They're very reliable. They're very accurate. So that's why we've chosen to go with that as our screener. Now, that does some different things than what our DIBELS test goes over. So DIBELS does a very good job of testing what we call our foundational skills. So foundational skills are those basic things that students need to be able to read and read well. So that might be breaking sounds apart, that might be blending sounds together, that might actually be tracking their actual oral reading fluency as they get older. And so we use those tests as well, and we keep them because we do get a lot of good information from them, and we make a lot of academic decisions based off of those scores in conjunction with the MAPS testing. One area that I want to really focus on is the test and the differences between the K2 test and the differences between the 2-5 test. And so when your student is in first grade here at South Elementary, they're taking the K2 MAPS growth test. This is a test that tests their basic skills just like every other test does. The only difference is questions are read to those students. So the scores in first grade, you might notice that there's a drop off when they take the second grade test, and that's because we start to use the 2-5 test in second grade. That test is a test that does the same kind of things. The only difference is the students will have to read everything on their own unless directed within like an IEP meeting or something like that where we have testing accommodations applied to that student. So the test is a little bit harder just because the students are required to do a little bit more. Now that does affect our fall scores a little bit because students are not in the game of school quite yet. They haven't got that rhythm, that stamina built up quite yet. So if you do happen to see a low score in the fall, don't panic, don't get worried yet, because it just might be a product of that tougher test, those expectations that are coming out of that student. So don't panic too much. Trust me, we have your children under control, and we will take care of them. We'll take very good care of them academically. Now, here's what I want to also say. If your student does pop up as an at-risk student, some risk, below level, any of those things, in DIBELS or MAPS, we do take that very seriously, and we do pay attention to those students. We will start to collect data on those students. We may do progress monitoring weekly to make sure that they are meeting the growth and the gains that they need to get the end of the year benchmarks in place. And we also do problem-solving meetings every 6 to 8 weeks. So if your student is a student who is on a READ plan, you can expect to see a report from us at South going home on your student every about 6 to 8 weeks. It'll show you the scores that they've had on their progress monitoring, and it'll also go over any kind of team notes that we may go over. I mean, if they're making great progress, we'll say, hey, we're going to keep with it. If they're kind of flatlining, that's where we step in and say, hey, maybe we need to change something. Maybe we need to adjust something for this student to make sure that they make those growth and those gains. So those reports will go home then. But again, if your student is a some risk student, we are still going to be collecting data on them. We are still going to be problem solving on those students as well. We actually go kind of a way above and beyond what the reading bill actually asks of us. And we've done this for a very long time prior to the reading bill even being created. We do go above and beyond, and we do collect data on a lot of our students because we do want to make sure that they are reading at grade level or above by the end of the year. So rest assured, we are going to be collecting that information. So even if your student is not on a READ plan, you might get a report that comes home every 6 to 8 weeks as well, just showing kind of where they're at. We know where they're going, we know where they're going to get to, and just kind of an ease of mind for you as a parent. So the last thing I want to talk about is, what do you do as a parent? So to help us out here at school, it's a great idea to read at home. That's like the best thing to do. Read to them, have them read with you. Like, those are the best things that you can do as far as boosting up that reading proficiency. Just that, build that love of reading for students. That's what's so important. That's about half the game right there. If the kids want to read and they love to read, they're going to improve. They're going to get better at it. Just as a heads up for you, a couple of things that we have in place. If your student is identified to be on a READ plan, they will stay on that READ plan until they have had 2 consecutive scores that are above that threshold for us. So they won't be off the READ plan necessarily until they take that spring MAPS test. So we have MAPS test again in the winter, which we'll take it around January-ish, I think. And then we have another one that we take around in April, about the end of April, May-ish is where we take them. So if on those next 2 tests they do score much higher, say this was a bad test day or whatever happens to be, or we've taught them a few things and now, hey, it's clicking for them and they're taking off, they will be off that READ plan if they can score above for 2 consecutive test scores. So that's kind of the biggest things that I wanted to tell you about and kind of explain to you. Of course, if you have any specific questions on your child, we have a couple of emails down at the bottom. You can reach out to me. You can actually reach out to our instructional coaches who are excellent at looking at kind of some of the data and understanding where students are needing the extra help in. So our instructional coaches are Aaron Meyer and Jen Schneider. Their emails are both in the bottom of that READ plan that got sent home, so feel free to reach out to them at any point in time. You can also reach out to your classroom teacher as well to get some extra help, get some extra ideas, just to check in. But please be aware that we will be in contact with you about every 6 to 8 weeks. We'll send home a report that kind of documents kind of what their progress has been throughout the year. So I hope that this has been informational for you. I hope that the READ letter itself is not something that scares you. That's not the point. The point is just, hey, let's just make sure that these kids get to the point where they need to be. So that's kind of the point, and that's kind of what we use it as here at Sydney Public Schools. We're always open to some feedback though, so if there's anything that has come across in a way that maybe is just kind of confusing or anything like that, we would love to hear about that, because this is a process that's ongoing and we'd love to fix it for you. So just as a heads up for you, parent-teacher conferences are coming up pretty soon. So here's our plan. Our plan is to kind of send home some of the testing data prior to report card time, so that when you actually do come for your conference, it's focused on your student and not just looking over and explaining graphs and data and all that good stuff. So I hope that you have a great rest of the weekend. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. Thanks.